Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Mobilization Podcast. Our goal is to equip and encourage mobilizers and missions pastors from around the world. And we want to especially welcome our new listeners today. Please don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you would give us 5-star ratings or a great review, that's going to help us to reach more listeners. Well, maybe you've got a friend or a colleague that would enjoy today's episode. We would love it if you would recommend it to them, send them the link, and if you yourself have any suggestions for show topics, you can email those right to me. Our email address is info@gospelmobilization.org. We love hearing from you, and we want to remind you, visit our website for all of today's show notes, and please consider donating during our current fundraising campaign to keep resources like this podcast on the air. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Service Reef. Our topic today is The Future Begins with Z, and our guest is Dr. Tim Elmore. Dr. Elmore is founder of Growing Leaders, an Atlanta-based nonprofit organization created to develop emerging leaders. His work grew out of 20 years serving alongside Dr. John Maxwell. Elmore has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, USA Today, Psychology Today, and he's been featured on CNN's Headline News, Fox Business, Newsmax TV, and Fox and Friends to talk about leading multiple generations in the marketplace. He's written over 35 books, including Habitudes, Images that Form Leadership Habits and Attitudes, 8 Paradoxes of Great Leadership, and A New Kind of Diversity, Making the Different Generations on Your Team a Competitive Advantage. His latest book, The Future Begins with Z, 9 Strategies to Lead Generation Z as They Upset the Workplace, released last fall and is the topic of our episode today. You can find all of his work at timelmore.com, which we will link to in our show notes. Tim, it's great having you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be with you. I can hardly wait for this conversation.
Oh, me too. I've been really looking forward to this. And I saw your book when it first came out, and I just had to get it right away. The Future Begins with Z. What a great title. And I love how you open it. You list a quote by Renee Walter that just hit me square between the eyes, which I just loved. And it says this: Generation Z is the sandpaper on my leadership I didn't know I needed. I just absolutely thought that was incredible. I feel a similar way and just love Gen Z. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. You know, a lot has been written about this young generation. And so what makes your book different and perhaps even timelier?
Yeah. Well, certainly a lot has been written, and much of it is very, very good. It's data on how they're different when they come into the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. But what I tried to do in my book, Dave, that's a little different is I really took the challenger voice. So I acknowledge right up front that, 3 out of 4 managers at work say Gen Z is the hardest generation to manage. 30% of them fire a Gen Z member within the first month of their start date, and another 30% avoid hiring them altogether.
Wow.
Well, that's not a path forward. That's not going to fare well. So what I say is, but what if your greatest challenge, leaders, can become your greatest solution to future challenges? I think Gen Z brings a visibility on the future that those of us 40 and over don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I need to welcome their differences because they bring them with them, but I need to also welcome, I think disciple making needs to look differently. Maybe it's half listening.
Yeah.
Now, certainly there's truths that need to be shared and imparted, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I tell you, Gen Z comes in knowing stuff that we need to know in kingdom work. So that's really the take I have. And then I give 9 strategies on how to do that differently with this new generation of workers. Yeah.
I love that. I was doing a session to missions mobilizers one day over Zoom, and I asked them, I said, hey, would you ever get a Gen Z mentor? Like, how about you getting
Yeah.
a mentor from the younger
Yeah.
generations to mentor you in some things? And you could have heard a pin drop. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Sure.
there's just a lot of tension in the room because nobody's ever thought of this. And
Yeah.
really, this
Yeah.
younger generation has something to teach me. It was a watershed moment for this team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what you described is what's commonly called reverse mentoring,
Right.
where an old and a young get together, they swap stories. I've found you always find something in common when you swap stories, but then you each take turns
Yeah.
mentoring the others. So when I meet with Andrew, who's 30 years younger than me, I mean, I'm sharing with him some timeless truths, but then I say, how could we use that latest app you just got on your iPhone for this organization? I'm
Yeah.
telling you, if we swallow our pride and we
Yes.
check our egos and logos at the door and
Right.
just be humans, it's amazing what can happen both ways. Yeah.
For sure. Well, talk about some of the most common myths
Yeah.
that we believe about Gen Z. I guess we already mentioned one there that they don't have anything to teach
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah.
But what are some others?
Wow. Well, I have an entire chapter, as you know, on this particular uh, topic or theme. Two of them that come to mind, Dave, real quick are, and I would entitle this comment I'm about to make: "Don't believe everything you think." So,
Sure.
we get thoughts. Well, our thoughts are often stereotypes, aren't they?
Yeah.
Kids today, they're all
Right?
fragile snowflakes or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
So, I have a friend named Matt, and Matt is a manager at a company here in Atlanta where I live, and he hired Ashley, 22 years old. She was right out of college. As she came to team meetings, she started confirming what Matt suspected. She was looking down at her phone, looked like she was scrolling through Instagram, not really talking in the meetings, looked like she was disengaged, and she left right at 5. Well, Matt thought, I need to meet with Ashley and just coach her up a little bit.
Yeah.
So after about a couple of weeks, he asked to meet on Monday morning. Monday morning rolls around. Ashley barges into his office and says, I think I got it. And he goes, what do you got? What do you got? And she said, I think I've solved the problem that we've been talking about for 2 weeks at those team meetings. She was engaged after all. She just didn't look up. She was Googling. She was on AI, Chat GPT, and she actually came up with an answer that Matt said. It was a great answer,
Wow.
but he suspected the worst rather than the best. So that would be one. Another one I learned from one of my focus groups in LA. So I was telling these Gen Zers, bosses often think you really don't want to work. You leave right at 5, like I just said. You don't stay a minute later. You even stop working on the task you've been working on. At 5 o'clock, you're out of there.
Yeah.
Looks like you don't want to work. And a young gal said, Dr. Tim, can I tell you why I leave right at 5? I said, sure. She said, well, I leave right at 5 o'clock because I have to rush over to another job. I don't make enough money to pay the bills here in LA on this first job, which, by the way, was a ministry.
Yeah.
And then she said, after that second job, I run over to take care of my mom who has stage 4 cancer.
Wow.
Suddenly I realized her work ethic was just fine.
Sure.
My suspicions were not so good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would say, listeners, if you're like me and you tend to go, I don't know if they're getting it, they're going to be different. They're going to be different. In fact, just like most mission work takes you into a cross-cultural interaction,
Yes.
talking to Gen Z is going to feel like a cross-cultural interaction.
That's right.
Different language, different values. But if you'll do the work, just like you do in China or France, do that work here, you'll be amazed what they might bring to the table.
Absolutely. We talk a lot in mobilization circles and mission circles about contextualization. And that's really what you're talking about is contextualizing the mission's message that we mission agencies and churches have and want to convey to a younger generation, which is a different culture than ours, right? And so that is a great way that you've explained that, really translating the message and thinking of that in sharing it with them in a way that they're going to understand it.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it.
Well, Gen Z has a reputation of being job hoppers. And so how can leaders make young team members want to stay longer? I mean, we know that mobilizers
Yeah.
and ministers who stay in their role a long time are more effective, right? They're learning
Yep.
over the years. And so the last thing we want is to bring a new Gen Zer on our mobilization staff and just have it be a revolving door, right? So
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are some tips maybe that leaders and mobilization directors or maybe senior pastors, how can they help young team members want to stay longer?
Yeah. Well, what you brought up is a major dilemma, not just for mission work or ministry work, even in corporate America.
Yeah,
So
sure.
there's a coming storm in terms of the job market, just the marketplace. So first and foremost, this blizzard storm we're facing starts with young people aren't taking typical first job
Mm,
opportunities. I'll give you, for instance, very in my generation, very very frequently you work a fast food restaurant job when you were 16, or you
right?
mowed lawns, or you did things like that.
Yeah.
Well, Gen Z, at least the Gen Z in my area, I live just outside of Atlanta, they would go, "Oh, that's beneath me. That's beneath me." So that's problematic, okay? Because
Yeah.
we may not ask them to be the vice president when they're 23 years old, right?
Right.
But secondly, it's good for us to know, just as good missiologists, that the market itself is smaller. So the millennial generation was 80 million strong. Tons of people had come out of the millennial generation and entered adult life. Gen Z is 59 million strong. So that in itself means there's fewer to find, which means we need to be better at finding them.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, Dave, and I hate this, but I need to share straight data.
Yes.
When you compare some of the things that Gen Z has struggled with to other generations, I mean, incarceration, obesity issues that just keeps them from being mobile,
Mm,
failure to graduate. Yeah, it's brought the labor force down for at least those 20 somethings. It's just good to know. I'm about to
sure.
give you some encouraging
Yeah.
information, but we need to know,
Right.
wow, we got to be better than what we've been at thinking we're going to attract these young missioners.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I need to point out, as we look at the population, at least in the U.S., maybe globally it's different. Well, it is different in the different parts of the world, but within the next 5 to 10 years, Dave, there will be more 65-year-olds than 16-year-olds in the U.S. That's never happened in American history before. It's always a kind of a pyramid, where there's a bunch of young and then we start dying off at 35, 40, 45, 50. There'll be more. We're living longer,
Yeah.
and there's fewer babies being born, at least in the U.S.
Hmm.
All of this means, well, let me give you three quick answers to your question. Number one, I think we need to make the job offer, the ministry offer that we're making, more attractive.
Yeah.
Is your website updated? Does it look like you built it in 2005? Or does it look like 2025? Seriously, look at it as if you're 20. Or if you have a 20-something kid at home, say, "Sweetheart, tell me what you think about this." We
Yes.
need to make the offer more attractive. It needs to attract them, not you as a midlifer, let's say.
Right.
Number two, I think we need to approach this job we're about to offer them as the best first job to launch them.
Hmm.
Now, Dave, you said it well. We want them to stay, of course. But so many employers I know are going, they stay a year and a half and then they're gone. They're hopping. The corporate ladder's become the corporate lily pad, right? It's crazy. So here's what I would say. Learn from the playbook of Orange Leaf frozen yogurt. They're a company, they're a chain of frozen yogurt stores, but they were noticing our young team members, we hire them, they stay a year, and then they leave. So they started changing the way they approach young job seekers. They would sit down in an interview, and if they decided they wanted to hire them, they said, "You look like a great candidate. How could we make this job the best launching pad for your career? What do you
Wow.
want to learn?"
Yeah.
And the young job seeker might go, "Well, I want to learn marketing." "Oh, you need to meet Nancy. Nancy's the queen of marketing. You'll learn a bunch from her. I'll set up a meeting for you with Nancy." Or, "I want to learn bookkeeping." "Oh, you need to meet Bob. Bob's our bookkeeper. He'd be brilliant." Well, here's what they found. As they're approaching it as a launching pad, and they wanted to pour into them as young job hunters, they found that they were staying because they were being mentored, not just
Sure.
managed.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is Jesus. This is
Yeah.
Jesus. He's discipling, not just spending time with those 12 guys. So I want to encourage you, really practice what we preach and do that. And then the third thing I would say is what I just alluded to. Approach your job as a leader more like a mentor than a manager. Don't just tolerate, but really say, every time you interact, how can I pour in? How can I invest? How can I pour in? How can I invest? I think those are doable things that don't cost a dime that we can make a change right now. Yeah.
Incredible insights on and kind of a reverse way of thinking, really, as we're pouring into Gen Z and developing. We might be scared that, well, I'm
Yeah.
going to develop them so much that they'll leave.
Yeah.
And, maybe the Lord would lead them to do
Yes.
that. But if we're kingdom people, wow, what a great role that you
Yeah.
have played, right, in pouring into them
That's
in
right.
hopes that they would stay and make your organization and ministry better.
Yeah.
But should the Lord call them on, hey,
Yeah.
we're kingdom people here, right?
Absolutely. I love that. And by the way, I love what Zig Ziglar once said decades ago. He talked to a leader that said, well, what if I pour into my people and they leave?
Yeah.
He said, worse yet, what if you don't and they stay? So
Oh,
you might as well equip them because you want to be useful, whether they're here or there. So I love
that's
that.
good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. Well, I would normally end it right there on that hot quote, but we've got more to talk about.
Okay. Okay.
My next question is regarding feedback. So let's say that you've got a Gen Z employee on your team
Yeah.
or somebody that you're working with, you're raising up, you're developing, you're mentoring, but it's time to give them some
Yeah.
maybe difficult news, or it's time to give a little feedback and maybe with some correction
Yeah.
with perhaps a fragile generation. How do leaders provide firm feedback to, say, a young employee?
Yeah. Good question. Well, the data does show they are coming in a bit more fragile. I don't want to stereotype all of them. There's certainly great candidates, but
Yeah.
as a generation who have been the products of social media, they are coming in a bit more sensitive, a little bit more fragile,
Okay.
not with thick skin that we all tend to need in ministry or
Sure.
in any job for that matter. So I have an acronym that I actually share in the book, but I'll share it right now. It has saved me time and time again when I have to have that difficult conversation.
Okay.
So, Dave, you know how forever and ever and ever we have said, this is the leg you got to stand on,
Yeah.
meaning you can go to the bank on this one. I've taken the letters ALEG, a leg, and they are 4 steps that I take when I have to have a feedback conversation. The letter A reminds me I need to start with asking, not telling. I want to tell them what they did wrong real
Right.
fast.
Right. Yeah.
If I start with asking, they feel valued. Think about it. When an older leader sits down with you and you're young and they say, could you help me understand what you did there? Or what was your thought process behind that decision you made? I would have never thought of that. They feel valued.
Sure.
So always start with asking. And by the way, every now and then they'll share their answer and they'll go, oh, you'll go, oh, I'm actually glad you did that. I'm so glad I did correct you. Brilliant idea.
Right. Yeah.
The letter L, listen. It does very little good to ask if we're not willing to do the work of listening.
So true.
And when we listen, they feel heard,
Yeah.
which, Dave, by the way, is the number one thing they're asking for as they start their careers. I want to have a voice from day one.
Yes.
The letter E and a leg reminds me to empathize. And by the way, this has been a learned art for me as an older white male. I need to find a way to perhaps that young woman or that young man, I need to find ways to let them know I'm understanding you. So I might say something like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that happened last year," or "I bet you felt horrible when that took place." But I'm sending the message. I'm getting it. I'm understanding. So think with me. Ask, they feel valued. Listen, they feel heard. Empathize, they feel understood. Now I've earned my right to guide them, which is what I wanted to do from the very beginning. But
Right.
I've won my right to do it with a bridge I built, not a badge I wear. And that's the key. Bridges, not badges. And older generations tend to lean on our title and our position, and we just got to stop it.
Yeah.
It's not that that's invalid. It's just that we need to win them at the heart level. We need to connect before they correct. That's it. Yeah.
It's so good. In the past, in another role, I established what I called the Gen Z Advisory Board for the organization. And so we brought in, students from a couple different Christian universities in the area. And all I did was feed them dinner and ask them 5 questions. It took me 10 minutes to prep,
Yeah.
really. You
Yeah.
know, get dinner in here and treat them, give them some swag, right? And I just ask questions and I shut my mouth. And wow, I mean, first of all, the gold that came out of there, right? Their wisdom and advice for our organization. But secondly, afterwards, time and
Yeah.
time again, they would say, "Thank you for
Yeah.
giving us a voice.
Wow.
Nobody cares what we think or what
Yeah.
we say."
Yeah.
And so it was remarkable to see that connection. And it turns out that many of them I'm in touch with still today
Isn't that
because
cool?
because
I
of that.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But your job was listening. So
right,
you just reminded me of something that's very important. Again, this is part of the book, but
yeah,
I discovered in the focus groups I did with Gen Zers from California to Georgia, they want a culture of belonging. And
yes,
it means what you just said. So the Gen Zers I talked to talked about the difference between belonging and fitting in. They don't want to fit in, they want to belong. Fitting in to them feels like, oh, I see, you want me to squeeze my round peg into a square hole
mm,
and look like you, dress like you, talk like you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we do. We tend to be that way.
yeah,
Belonging is not squeezing a round peg in a square hole. Belonging is allowing them to bring who they really are to the table,
yeah,
but playing it as part of a larger picture. So they do need to fit into the kingdom. It's not about them, it's about something bigger, but they get to bring their whole self there. So you can see the difference. But the way they get to do it is those leaders that bring them in say, "Tell me what you think. Tell
mm,
me what you're feeling right now. Tell me what you would do." I'm telling you, they have visibility on the future better than I do.
yes,
So that's going to be huge, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, this episode today is brought to you by our friends at Service Reef. Service Reef helps churches and mission organizations automate and streamline their entire sending pipeline, from applications and fundraising to communication and team management. So, mobilization leaders, you can focus on people instead of spreadsheets and manual processes. And they've also created for you a free resource called Mind the Gaps. It's an ebook that helps organizations identify the hidden gaps that often slow down mobilization efforts. And you can download this for free using the link in the show notes, gospelmobilization.org/podcast. We are talking today with Dr. Tim Elmore, author of the book, The Future Begins with Z. He's a sought after author, speaker, and founder of Growing Leaders. So, Tim, we know that mental health issues have become problematic. So,
Yeah.
what can leaders and mobilizers do?
Wow. Well, again, there is a chapter in the book on this very thing, but let me start by saying we need to recognize as older leaders who may not struggle like they do with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, which has been normalized in Gen Z. We
Yeah.
need to make sure we don't invalidate them.
Mm,
Anxiety is a very real thing for a kid, perhaps that grew up on social media and they're overwhelmed with the 10,000 messages a day they're getting in their life.
sure.
So don't poo-poo it. Don't just say, "Oh, just pray about it." Would you read that Philippians 4? Don't do that. I
Yeah.
mean, those are great verses, and yes, you should pray.
Right.
But I think we need to be leaders that hear them out and say, "Gosh, I can see what you're struggling with." If we'll lean in to the dilemma they have, they won't feel like they need to look out for number one, and they'll lean into the ministry.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you lean in first, leaders, and then they'll lean into the work. But that's how it always works. This is how Jesus did it.
Yeah.
But let me give you 4 words real quick that I think will be a good short answer, Dave, to what you ask. The first one is the word margin. I think we need to help Gen Z team members with creating margin in their day, space, where they're not just active, 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 1 minute to the next. I think they are overwhelmed. I know they're overwhelmed.
Right.
In
Yeah.
fact, 94% of college students in America say that the number one word they use to describe their life is the word overwhelmed.
94?
94, 9 out of 10.
Wow.
44%, or almost half, would say, I'm so overwhelmed it's difficult to function.
Wow.
And nearly 1 in 10 has thought about suicide in the last year. Now, maybe they didn't pull out a weapon, but it crossed their mind. It
Sure.
might be easier
Yeah.
to end it all than to face what I have to face. So we need to be empathetic.
Yes.
So I would say margin is going to be part of the answer. Encourage them. If they're working for you, encourage them to put space in the day to decompress and just think or pray or whatever, but to not crowd it with activities.
Good.
Dave, there is such a thing with Gen Z. This wouldn't be necessarily ministry, but in business, it's called bathroom camping. Bathroom camping. So
Wow.
it's a
Really?
habit that Gen Z has. They start feeling stressed and pressurized and overwhelmed, and they go into a bathroom stall and close the door, and they stay there for 30 minutes,
Oh, wow. Really?
stressed out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now the answer is not to chuckle at that when you hear
Right.
about it. The
Yeah.
answer is, okay, something's obviously not right. We need to make this better. That's not the ultimate solution, is to go in the bathroom for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's margin is number one. Number two is movement. I think we forget this fundamental. God made our bodies to move, not sit for 8 hours a day like
Yeah.
we often do. So at our office, it's very common, 2 or 3 times a day, maybe, for our young team members to get out and about and walk around the building 4 times.
Yes.
Just get those endorphins flowing.
Right.
God put chemicals in our brain to be used, and they are functioning well when we are moving about. So I just want to remind you, you already know this, but get moving. Put it in the calendar every day. Number three, mindfulness. Now, mindfulness probably sounds like, oh, is that some new age term? It's not. I think it's actually a biblical term. We would call it meditation. But mindfulness is when you stop the activity, you quiet yourself, you focus your mind. Maybe you're breathing at this point, and at first just focus on the breathing. And maybe then you're just saying, God, be my peace. Be my peace. Let the peace that passes understanding keep my mind and heart. Now, I'm telling you, mindfulness or meditation is huge. And we know that. David writes about it in the Psalms all the time. All right, so those are three. The last one, these are 4-letter M's for all the pastors out there that like to think in alliteration.
Yes.
The last word is management. Some of these young Gen Zers need to manage their mental health better. And maybe that means going to see a counselor. I am for that. Now,
Right.
I don't think it's the first resort. It might be the last resort after you try the other responses, biblically. But I'm telling you, sometimes a great biblical counselor is exactly what they need, who just takes them on a truth walk. And they begin to get in touch with the truth and not these, distortions, these, mental distortions that we get all the time. So I'll stop there, but this is a real issue, and we need, as leaders, to pay attention to it.
That's good. Great advice. You also, in your book, provide some practical strategies to lead Gen Zers. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first one I would say is what I just said before, a leg.
Yeah.
This, I'm telling you, Dave, this has been gold for me. Ask, listen, empathize, guide. Ask, listen, empathize, guide. But here's a couple of others. When I look at best practices for the organizations that lead Gen Z well, one of the best practices is create an internal gig economy. Create an internal gig economy. So we often hear this word gig economy. Right now, Gen Z are job hoppers oftentimes. They are hustlers. They got 2 or 3 jobs going on the side. Oftentimes it's because of economics in their life.
Right.
Maybe it's because they get bored quickly. But they want to be entrepreneurs. 72% of high school students in America want to be an entrepreneur. So what if we had a zone in our workplace that felt like a startup? Maybe they meet twice a month with a group of creatives, maybe a bunch are Gen Z, and you give them a problem that your organization has tried to solve for years now and never got it solved. But you turn them loose as if it was a startup. And you set aside budget for the untold fruits of their work over there. And it sunsets maybe in 6 months or a year. But what you've got is, man, this feels like a startup over here. But thankfully, we're an established organization that actually has income coming in through donations, et cetera. Internal gig economies may be part of your answer. I think another one is Give them as much flexibility and autonomy as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Now, I know some jobs you can't be flexible.
Sure.
But listen to think about giving them flexibility and autonomy, maybe even work from home sometime during the week. You know what that communicates to them? Trust.
Yes.
Trust you. I trust you. Now, have them earn that over the first 90 days, perhaps, but let them know if they really bear fruit like you want them to, you're going to offer them that kind of remuneration as well as money. They're going to have that freedom. That just communicates huge trust in them and belief in them.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I'd say real quick is the Gen Zers that I know function in all four cylinders when they have a leader who has high expectation and high belief.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. These are cousins, but not twins. High expectation means I actually expect you to come through with 5 stars. I know you. I expect a lot of you. Think how that speaks to
Yes.
you know me and you think I can do this?
Right. Yeah.
They often respect us because we're older. And when we say that, it's huge. But get this, high expectations without high belief feels harsh.
Sure.
I also need to communicate, I believe in you. Now, high belief without high expectation, that feels hollow. You say you believe in me, but you don't expect much.
Right.
So those two together, it's a velvet brick.
Yeah.
Jesus was a velvet brick. He says to the woman that was caught in adultery, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Velvet brick. So make sure, if you hear nothing else today,
Yes.
expectation, high belief. So I'll just stop there, Dave, but
Yeah.
I think that would be what I would say if I had coffee for 5 minutes with anybody listening right now.
Sure. Those are so good. And especially that last one, even in your book, I memorized that sentence. I have high expectations for you, and I know that you can reach them.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I teach a Chinese culture and language class over at our Christian high school over the lunch hour during the week. And I've got these students, and some of them are, they have IEPs, right? And they're a little bit challenged academically, and they're forced to be in a class learning one of the hardest languages in the world, if it isn't your mother tongue, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I have shared that sentence with them. Hey, I have high expectations for you, but I know that you can reach these.
Yeah.
And they have, it is amazing. I'm telling you, one of the best students in the class has a learning disability. It's just been remarkable to see how that sentence and what God is doing in their lives as we believe in them, as we pour into them, And so I, for one, am optimistic about the future of missions around the world. But what about you? Why and how do you remain optimistic about the future, especially when it comes to the next generation of ministers and missionaries?
Yeah. Well, I believe that they're going to be the greatest solution to future challenges.
Yes.
In the land of tomorrow, I'm the immigrant, they're the native.
Wow.
So we need to listen. So I'll close with a quick story on this.
Yeah.
One of the early stories in the book I tell because I absolutely love it. I'm a baby boomer, so I'm old, right? I remember growing up in the 60s when the United States Space Program, NASA, put a man on the moon. July of 1969, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon and said, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. What most people don't know is the story behind that story. When JFK, our president, said in 1961, and then again in 1962, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, NASA didn't even have the technology to do such a thing. That was way beyond what they were capable of. So they quickly bring in new tech. But those old 50-year-old engineers in there, they didn't know how to use this new tech.
Sure.
But guess who did? The interns from
Interesting.
Purdue
Yeah.
and MIT and Georgia Tech. So they're starting to ask, now get this, these young 20-somethings, how do we do this? And those interns had already given tours of NASA, so they understood the big picture. They were able to plug in and start taking key roles. So Dave, check this out. When Neil Armstrong walked on the moon and they accomplished that big, audacious goal, the average age of the control center operator, 27 years old.
Average
Average age
age?
27. I would have guessed it was 47.
Sure, yeah.
And those young operators said it actually helped us succeed because we were still had ideals and believed that we could pull it off when everybody else would have said, I doubt it. I
Yeah.
doubt it. And then get this, the one they put in charge to say go, not no, or no, got not go, to actually say, let's do it. Let's set the capsule down.
Yeah.
Young man by the name of Jack Garman, 23 years old, 1 year out of college.
Wow.
So I'm saying to you listeners right now, what's our moonshot? What are we trying to pull off today? And could they play the role, the key role in our future?
Yes.
But now watch this. The older generations that were over 40, that used to be the operators, they were called sim soups, simulator supervisors. They were coaching and mentoring those young teammates, those young operators. So it's not that we back off completely. We just take our role as Moses and let Joshua step in and take him to the promised land. So that's my pitch for all of you listening right now.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely incredible. And if you want to know more on this topic, you've got to get this book, The Future Begins with Z, written by our guest, Dr. Tim Elmore. It's absolutely incredible. It'll change your perspective on the younger generations and equip you to mobilize them to the nations. So let's change the world for Jesus. Tim, it was great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Dave, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, let's keep praying for more laborers, especially young Gen Z laborers, to work in his harvest fields.